Kim concludes writing part 1 of a book titled Fantasy World Food Travels. When he returns to Earth and kills his enemies, he's going to live under a different name and publish this book. Edward suggests changing the title to The More I Eat, the Stronger I Get, but Kim says it doesn't matter. He'd assured it'll be a bestseller with 3 blockbuster films. They discuss the return ritual, but Edward claims it's impossible at the moment. If they do this, the king's heirs will claim the thrones, ally together, and come after humans for revenge. Elves are skilled archers and magic users, the dwarves are unparalleled blacksmiths, and both the hybrids and lizardmen have superior physical abilities. As of now, humanity has no hope of winning. Edward is determined to establish power from within first to build up their strength. He hands Kim a hit list combined with a map to all sorts of mystical creatures, and appoints him as the top secret royal investigator, allowing him to travel freely. Edward asks him to return within a year for his coronation ceremony though. Edward talks to the head assassinator, who is now tasked with his safety. The royal assassins are now under Edward's control as he possesses the signet ring. The royal guard, under the parasite's effects, need to be fully turned to his side as Kim is leaving though. Meanwhile, Kim puts on a simpler enchanted armor, perfect for posing as a mercenary and adventurer, and sets off. Back on Earth, Kim was nothing more than a notorious criminal. He didn't have many hobbies because of his secret, but he truly loved reading. He enjoyed fiction the most, but this world was too far behind the times for quality books. Even so, there were entertaining stories and songs to be heard containing boundless information preserved through generations via bards. Felina Greensmith is an aspiring bard turned wandering minstrel, irritated about how people only want to hear about exaggerated and exciting adventures. She enters a tavern in Sand of Fabreau and notices 3 mercenaries, Kim and a mystery person inside. Aiming for tips, she starts singing a glorified song about the prince and his knight. The audience loves it and the tips start flowing in, but she is already sick of the song. She sings of Edward's sorrow over his brother's death and how he was empowered by the goddess, causing Kim to laugh. An irritated mercenary attacks him, breaking Felina's flow. Kim effortlessly beats all his attackers while Felina makes a run for it. Meanwhile, Kim's onslaught is interrupted by the mystery person, Paladin Purecreed, who tells him to stop tormenting the weak. Kim notices the insignia of the city of the goddess on Purecreed. Paladins are mass-produced superhumans with asymmetric powers centered in the city of the goddess, while the Saintess was the pinnacle of their powers, creating one required too much time and resources. In contrast, Paladins are easier to make despite being inferior to a Saintess. Choosing not to get on the city's bad side, Kim lets go of the mercenary and talks to her. Purecreed is surprised he listens so easily, but Kim explains he was just responding to a threat. Embarrassed, she opts to drink another beer, while Kim leaves. Fabreau was a country of little to no value, so it didn't suffer much from the Demon War. After the war, refugees and mercenaries flocked to the country, leading the economy to skyrocket. This was the start of the class system: the lower class of refugees, middle class of original residents, and upper class of mercenaries who rule everything. Money and violence became the currency, while Count Fabreau only cared about himself. Kim meets up with a royal assassin, deciding to go ahead with their plan. Suddenly, the town goes into uproar as the Crimson Gale mercenary leader charges about looking for Kim for assaulting his men. The leader is desperate to appear strong to his men and increase their morale, so he brought numbers with him. A drunkard approaches and yells at them, so they prepare to beat him up to set an example. But an arrow out of nowhere kills the drunkard, causing all the citizens to riot and confront the mercenaries. The drunkard was none other than a disguised Kim taking the planned shot. Turns out Count Fabreau was on Kim's hit list. The country was well renowned up until his grandfather's resignation, but the Count has the brain of a 12-year-old and the country is nothing now. It was mostly slums wide open to monsters, making it perfect hunting grounds for Kim. He enjoyed his time there doing idle slaughter, testing his abilities for 2 weeks. Edward plans on removing all the lords he deems unfit, so Kim starts a citywide riot by staging the attack and using multiple different voices, including Dragon Speak. This spurs the citizens into action, leading them to attack the mercenaries while Kim watches overhead. The rampage of Sand of Fabreau started out of the citizens' anger, who chase out both mercenaries and refugees. The Count was also killed, a perfect finish. Edward pretends to be angered by the news and adds a clause to the territory management law. Any lord can be stripped of their territory if the Pope and King deems him unfit. He also limits the number of mercenaries who can stay within a certain territory. Kim watches the city burn as the royal assassin reports to him. His next destination is Kavalev's, a territory with griffin sightings. As Kim prepares to leave, he is approached by Paladin Purecreed. Griffins are high-level monsters whose front half is eagle and hind half is lion. They are a perfect example of this world's magnificence and imperfection in one, a truly inefficient body. They fly awkwardly and hop around on the ground, are still pretty strong, live in groups of 10 and prey on horses, so attacks on humans are common. Kavalev's is the Rocky Mountains of the Griffins, so the guild has requested the extermination of the Griffins. As such, Kim and Purecreed, who is now calling him master, plan to hunt down the head griffin and curb their hunting activities. She sings him words of noble praise, but they're honestly wasted on Kim. When the royal assassin assassinated Count Fabreau in his own mansion during a chaos and was returning to Kim, Pure Creed happened to be nearby and followed him out of suspicion. She overhears the assassin calling him Sir Kim and realizes his true identity. She confronts him with stars in her eyes, so he shows her the royal medallion and asks her to keep quiet about it. She agrees on the condition that he takes her as his disciple. Paladins are tracked 24/7 by magic to reduce the wastage of military strength, and if one is killed, the tracking spell transfers to the attacker and makes him a wanted man. Thus, Kim attempts to make her leave of her own volition by making her do grueling tasks, but to no avail. She digs a cave with her bare hands while making no sound, all with a smile on her face. Hidden in the cave on the mountains, Kidua wait in ambush for the griffins. While Kim is mildly impressed by her abilities, the griffins return and he instructs her to handle it however she sees fit. She bravely charges with her sword and attacks the nearest griffin, who grabs her by the head. She returns triumphant after some time later, but Kim states that her skills are terrible. Pure Creed loosens her sword grip, fearing it would break, making weak swings. She constantly checks her sword, slowing her judgment, and since her attention is elsewhere, her magic is slow and inaccurate. These were all criticisms she has received before, but hearing it from Kim hurt her more. He tells her to cast aside her sword, leading her to wonder if she is unfit to be a knight, but he states she can fight like him instead. While she wonders if he meant fighting with her bare hands, Kim heads towards another pack of griffins and casually grabs one by the throat. Kim one-shots the griffin, while Pure Creed watches dumbstruck. Pure Creed's swordsmanship is average, firepower and technique of the light sword are lacking, and physical powers remain untapped. She hasn't built upon any of her skills and capabilities, making her weak. Even so, she is invincible against humans, just not monsters or demons. Kim reluctantly took her as his apprentice, but seeing her fight made him interested in teaching her. Why? Because Lion Hand's Pure Creed is the same type of monster as he. A dozen griffins surround them as Kim takes out a magic pouch, used to stash and remove possessions, and pulls out some horse meat to draw his prey in. Thus, all the griffins charge at him in a frenzy. Shang Xing Quan is a Chinese martial arts technique that imitates the movements of animals. Kim learned it in China thinking it'll go well with his ability, but quit pretty early because it demanded the use of his human body. Using sheer power, devoid of technique, is just how he rolls. Using mild body modifications, he experiments with the griffins. He tests out a synthetic part arthropod creature he ate in Stuckfit, allowing the use of the front claw of the mantis shrimp, capable of punching with a force 2,500 times its body weight. Kim massacres the griffins with different monster and animal combinations as Pure Creed watches. This battle was purely brutal and barbaric, lacking in any technique, flair, or knowledge. Such crude violence is not the way of the paladins, but she feels her heart racing from the prospect. She wonders if all her years of training were a waste, considering her own monstrous brute strength. But as a paladin, she cannot give in to her impulses. Kim returns and asks what she thinks. When she hesitates, he states that she doesn't have to answer immediately. Within 3 days, the duo kill all the griffins and head back. At the Kavalov's Adventurers Guild, Kim is posing as Jack, a rank C adventurer. The receptionist blandly tells him that they have orders to give the credit for the extermination to another party. Kim asks the receptionist the reason for her claim, but she plainly states that it's an order and cannot reveal who it came from. Kim concludes that someone at the guild is stealing others' work and that the receptionist is their accomplice. He wonders what'll happen if rumors spread to other regions, but she threatens him, claiming that he's nothing compared to the guildmaster. Kim grabs her hand and states that he'll come to him, crushing her wrist soon afterwards. The guildmaster, Julio Aventuras, is the only adventurer to reach the rank SS. 25 years prior, he was a member of the warrior party that defeated the Demon King. He wished for the power to defeat enemies he couldn't best before and gain immense influence upon return. An adventurer symbolizes freedom, and the power he was granted was political power. Using the guild, he spread the narrative of suppressing freedom to control others. But this time, the warriors' party lacked an adventurer, purposefully removed by the king to prevent Julio's influence. Thus, the people praise the symbol of the crown now. To restore power to the symbol of freedom, he needs a hero amongst adventurers, preferably his son George. George opposes the idea of taking someone else's credit, though, but his father berates him that it's necessary. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by the receptionist's screams, prompting them to head downstairs. They are greeted by Kim mopping the floor with everyone there. Enraged by what was done to the receptionist, his fiancé, George attacks Kim with his sword. Kim nonchalantly shatters the blade, grabs him by the neck, and kills him. He introduces himself to an enraged Julio, who apologizes for trying to steal his credit. Kim accepts the apology and turns to leave, angering him further. Kim plainly states that he was defending himself and that he only attacked because Julio tried to steal from him without permission. Julio contemplates how selfish he had been and how his methods were never right. But none of that mattered now, as he was just robbed of his family and future. He calls for the Kingbird Feathers, Three Swords, Youths of Verdival, and Cyclone Axe Guilds to enact his revenge. Part 6 will be coming out soon.